Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's going on, Ma? Welcome you guys to another watch party on a Thursday. Now, here in the middle of June. Glad you guys are here. I'm also glad that for all of my early show ups, you guys that show up to the party right as soon as the door opens. Bro, calm down. Okay, I'm 5 minutes behind, but sometimes you have to do what you have to. I'm glad you guys are here, though. Appreciate the love. What's going on, Jason Stanley, and also Luke Cyborg Dragon. I always love seeing the dragons in here. We're going to build this community over here. Since you guys apparently have been abandoned from your normal slot of the TDR pre-port, I mean, anytime John leaves you guys hanging, I'm here to pick you back up. Here's my hand. Come with me. Allison Ald, good to see you. Mara Felson, hey, as well. So as usual, there's lots to get to. As usual as well, there's also lots of video support to get to that tells the story much better than I can. I tend to stutter over my words. I tend to pause and say, of course, and because sometimes when you listen to directly what these people are saying, you might have a better idea of exactly what's going on. So I want to start here. And it seems like this would generally be about the economy and Trump's tariffs, but what I want to focus on here, and the point of this that I want you guys to see, is how this entire thing is made to make Donald Trump look like he's a competent individual. It's been the story of his whole life. His failures are reality, but his incompetence gets covered up by people creating this scenario and this vision of him that isn't what he really is. So I want to start with Andrew Clyde here, Republican representative, who's saying the things you might expect him to say about Donald Trump to make him look better than he is.
Congressman, what are your thoughts on the pace of this trade and tariff executive orders and the way that it's impacting the economy right now?
Well, I think our president has been the best trade negotiator in the entire history of the United States. This is a man that wrote The Art of the Deal, and he definitely has shown that he knows how to make a deal and make a deal that is good for this country. I mean, we have seen, inflation at 2.1% core inflation.
That's right.
Which literally going back to the first Trump era. This man knows what he's doing, and I trust him. So
Great.
I think this is going to be good for America.
Tiana, Jeff, Congressman.
He's the best damn trade negotiator in the history of the country. So over the top words like that. Also, did you know that Donald Trump wrote The Art of the Deal, and therefore I trust Donald Trump. No matter what the actual reality looks like in front of us, no matter what the actual price increases are actually happening in front of us look like, Donald Trump is the best damn negotiator in the history of the world, and Donald Trump wrote The Art of the Deal. That's all Andrew Clyde needs to see. This is how propaganda works. This is how creating kings out of absolutely incompetent individuals works. Because I want to stick to that one point about he wrote The Art of the Deal. No, he didn't. And the ghostwriter for The Art of the Deal spoke before about how it's the biggest regret that he's ever had in his life.
Do you regret the book? Greatest regret of my life, without question. I wish the book weren't even in print. And I've spent 2.5 years now, after not speaking about the book for 30 years. Once Trump began to run, I've spent 2.5 years out there trying to warn people about who this man is. And yeah, it's something I can't ever really fully make right.
Is that your obligation, though? I mean, you were a ghostwriter. You got coverage. You got credit on the book, cover, jacket. You did all the things you're supposed to do as a writer. You took a contract. You got paid. In the sense, you did everything correctly. What's the core of this regret?
That I knew this was a bad guy when I did the book.
Schwartz knew that he was a bad guy when he did the book. It's the biggest regret of his, I guess, professional life, even though he was asked, of course, how he got paid for it, and he did the things on the up and up. I mean, ghostwriters are so normal, and people slap their names on it. I'm going to let him explain why it's the biggest regret of his life, because he did this for a bad guy that he knew was a bad guy.
I had just some few months earlier written a piece about him as a staff writer at New York Magazine, which is where I was, called The Cold War on 100 Central Park South. about his attempts to push rent control and rent stabilized tenants out of a building in a very luxurious location so he could transform it into a luxury condo and make a lot of money. And in reporting that piece, it was very clear to me that this was a guy who lacked ethics and was willing to push the envelope very, very intensely when it came to the law. And I should have, in retrospect, I should have made that enough of a reason to have said no when I got the opportunity to do the book.
So he knew about him. I mean, he was writing about how he was this guy who's trying to push folks out of this affordable housing or just even rent control because he's a greedy bastard and he doesn't care about other human beings. I mean, that's capitalism, right? So this is why he knew much about him. But I wanted to point out who the Art of the Deal author actually was so that we could dispel that BS that Clyde was talking about off the top, how Donald Trump trusted because he's the Art of the Deal guy. Should you trust Andrew Clyde, who's also said he wishes he never did that? Maybe we should trust him too. Again, more of the propaganda, because this is more how this whole thing works. Peter Navarro, who's that clown that got demoted and isn't the front face of this whole tariff policy anymore. He's still talking sometimes, but only to people like Maria Bartiromo who don't ask follow-up questions when he's talking about all these deals that they've been making. Again, this is the continuation of this propaganda to make Donald Trump look like a competent individual, even though things are destructive all around him.
Real quick, Peter, how many more deals would you expect on trade in the coming month?
Well, look, I want to make this really clear. We've got a bunch of deals right now, but a lot of them are unilateral because we had to send letters to people. And the problem, Maria, is they have such a good deal screwing America, let me be blunt about it, that they're reluctant. But we've got over 90% of the trade deficit covered with letters or deals right now. We're in a good place. Trust in Trump. He's going to get it done, and the American people are going to have trillions of dollars in tax cuts and debt reduction because of that. Let's never lose sight of the fact of that.
Well, we just had a budget surplus for the month of June, so there's that, thanks to tariff revenue. Peter, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Always a pleasure.
Trust in Trump. Don't forget those lines. Trust in Trump. As he's then talking about, as this guy has implemented these tariffs, and he's had these letters. They're not negotiations. These aren't deals. These are letters that they sent out, and they said, this is what you're going to pay, and if you don't, F you too. That's not a deal, especially since they said from the beginning, we're going to have all these great deals. By the way, don't forget that deal with Brazil when they were actually had a trade surplus. So there's no reason to go after them economically. Instead, Donald Trump went after them because his boy Bolsonaro was being tried in that country in their court of law, which has absolutely zero to do with Donald Trump. That is, until he wants to control other countries as well. So what does that have to do with the economy and Americans? And that BS that Maria Bartiromo said at the back end, how we brought in all this extra tariff revenue. Do you know who pays for the amount of money that comes in from tariffs? Regular American consumers do. So all that extra money that they said they're getting, they're siphoning it from your pockets. Just in case we all forget that. I'm going to say it every time they bring this up because they bring it up all the time. So, of course, in a matter of all these things, he needs himself to look better. That's why he's been on this warpath against Jerome Powell, because Jerome Powell hasn't decided to lower those interest rates, which would help Donald Trump look better, even though he's given him no reason to lower interest rates. He just talks about how great the economy is. But Jerome Powell's like, let's wait and see. He's not even saying that it's garbage. He's just saying, let's wait and see, because who knows? You've been delaying and pushing back and announcing and then threatening and then implementing and then not implementing so many times. There's no definitive nature and no approach that this economy is going in for me to make these kinds of declarative and definitive moves. I mean, I think it makes sense. So I think you guys may have seen this. Donald Trump was dogging out Jerome Powell yet again, because again, he's the great deal maker and he's the smartest guy on the face of the earth.
To end what you've been seeing over the last couple hours.
Mr. President Jerome Powell, do you have plans, or if you're back considering firing Jerome Powell? And what's your justification if you're thinking about this to do this?
Too late. He's always been too late. Hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago. Europe has cut them 10 times in the short period of time, and we cut them none. The only time he cut them was just before the election to try and help Kamala or Biden, whoever the hell it was, because nobody really knew. Obviously, that didn't work, but he tried to cut him for the Democrats, Kamala. And how did that work out? You'll tell me. It didn't work out too well, did it? But I think he does a terrible job. He's costing us a lot of money, and we fight through it. It's almost, the country's become so successful that it doesn't have a big impact, but it does hurt people wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him, but they did. So, we're not planning on doing anything. We're very concerned. He's doing a little renovation for $2.5 billion of the Fed, building a renovation, and they have a close to $900 million cost overrun. And it's a shame, but the biggest cost overrun is the cost overrun for interest rates, because we should be paying 3 points lower, and we would save $1 trillion a year in interest if that were the case. And all it is the stroke of a pen. And that goes for his board too, because his board is.
So, he just continues to rant and rave about Jerome Powell. And by the way, he has no idea. He has no idea how this guy, why Joe Biden put him in place, Jerome Powell, and then extended him. He has no idea why Joe Biden would do such a thing. This guy's a disaster. I mean, his name is Too Late. That's why his nickname is Too Late. The nickname that I gave him, that's why it is. And then I call him. In other words, I call him Too Late because I'm a petulant child and the guy isn't doing what I want him to do to make me look better. Let's go back to that whole thing about how Joe Biden is the one, though, that appointed him, and Donald Trump can't believe that such a thing would happen. Well, CNN spliced this together.
He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him, but they did.
Accordingly, it is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. I am confident that with Jay as a wise steward of the Federal Reserve, it will have the leadership it needs in the years to come.
Joe Biden looks a lot like Donald Trump, declaring how great in the future will be in the years to come after he nominated and got Jerome Powell in the position as Fed chair. It's really, it's weird. There might be a point, and I say this all the time again, and this is why. You probably shouldn't even have to, go back and revisit all the lies that Donald Trump told about literally everything. Just know that since he's lied about literally everything that you've heard up to this point, he's probably also lied about literally everything you've heard before that, and then will continue to lie after that. It's who he is. So again, why are we looking to trust someone who told you countless times not to trust him? Why is the next thing suddenly something you can trust him on? He's a liar. Or I guess in these terms, since he's an old man, he's got cognitive decline and he has no idea what he's talking about anymore. He doesn't even remember that he nominated Jerome Powell to be the head of the Fed. He has no idea. What else may he forget about? Did he forget where the nuclear codes are? Does he not know what he's going to do? Did he forget that he already bombed Iran? How many more things is this old guy going to forget? Which one is it? Is he lying or did he forget? Because it can't be a good thing. Is this part of the art of the deal? Is he claiming that Joe Biden got him in the position because he's wheeling and dealing right now to try and get him to leave? Who knows? Let's make up some more BS. None of it ever makes any kind of sense, including the fact that people don't listen to other folks like Tom Tillis, who's afraid of Donald Trump, but still saying a couple things and voting certain ways on these bills, wants to clarify what's wrong with these Republican bills, and including currently what he was talking about here was this rescission package, where they're finding ways to cut more things that regular Americans pay for so they can steal more of your money. Listen to Tom Tillis talk about the things that they're going to have to do after this entire party backed up this bill, the spending and tax bill, and how they thought it was so great that they called it big and beautiful up until now.
I suspect we're going to now, there are some things that we're going to regret, some second and third order effects. And I suspect that when we do, we'll have to come back and fix it. similar to what I'm trying to do with the bill I voted against a couple of weeks ago, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, that I think we're going to have to go back and work on.
If you suspected that there'd be problems and regrets that you're gonna have to go back and work on, why didn't you suspect and work on them when you were making those problems? Because when they go back to work on it, if they do anything as far as that, I mean, we already know that my man in Missouri, Josh Hawley, just yesterday I was talking about Josh Hawley saying he's going to go back and take care of these Medicaid cuts that are going to harm so many people that he then voted for right before that. So you have to go back and fix it. I feel like you probably already knew about it before you voted for it. Well, in Tom Tillis's case, credit to him, he did vote against it. But he is voting for parts of that rescission package that he says he doesn't even necessarily agree with, but he's going to do it anyway. This is how these things operate. But is anybody listening to Tom Tillis say this is going to be a disaster? Is anyone listening to Josh Hawley saying this is going to be a disaster and it actually falls at the feet of this party who voted for these things? Instead, these are supposed to be comeback stories. Or look at how he's representing his state. Did he represent his state when he voted and told them a big F you to them? I feel like no. I feel like no, that's probably not really the case. But since we're talking about how great of a deal maker this guy is, yes, we're still on this BS. This is another example as to why he says the things he says and people just pick it up and act like it's a thing. What is it about being such a great deal maker that also crosses over to just being a bloviating, loudmouth talker who claims victories when victories aren't really there? Did you guys hear about his declarations about Coca-Cola? This is crazy.
President Trump says Coca-Cola is updating its American ingredients list. That news coming in a Truth Social post from the president, who is a noted fan of Diet Coke. He said, "I've been speaking to Coca-Cola about using real cane sugar in Coke in the United States, and they have agreed to do so." He added, "It's just better." U.S. Coca-Cola is made with high fructose corn syrup, at least as best as we know. It is a secret recipe. Archer Daniels Midland is one of the biggest producers of that ingredient. The shares for Archer Daniels are down by about 5.7%, much lower in the pre-market. When asked later yesterday about the president's claim, Coke didn't explicitly say that it would make that switch to cane sugar. In a statement, the company said, "We appreciate President Trump's enthusiasm for our iconic Coca-Cola brand. More details on new innovative offerings within our Coca-Cola product range will be shared soon." So if you're reading through the corporate speak here, it sounds to me like, oh my gosh, he made public comments that we were making to him kind of privately with maybe something we're planning. I would almost wonder, based on that statement, if they're just going to do a different line of Coke that says pure cane sugar and keep the old stuff there too.
So real fast before the details of how this guy is trying to usurp this whole thing as a victory for himself when he actually probably didn't do anything. So that anchor there was talking about how they may have had these conversations and maybe Coke was buttering him up and saying, look, we got a secret. This is what we might be doing. And instead of that, instead of hearing that and understanding there's some business trying to have some new line because there's Coke 7 now. Instead of that, he says, look what I did. Look what I did, bro. Because all he cares about is promoting himself and making himself seem like this untouchable, intelligent figure that has his finger on the pulse of everything, all the way down to the Coke's secret recipe. Did you guys know that there's a new McDonald's burger coming out and they're calling it the Trump? So even besides that, the whole thing about Coke being that, they didn't even confirm that this is going to be something that they're going to be doing, as you saw a little bit of that anchor reading. But let's go to his full Truth Social post, because I think she only mentioned a piece of it, just this whole declaration that he made. "I've been speaking with Coca-Cola about using real, in capitals, cane sugar in Coke in the United States, and they've agreed to do so. I'd like to thank all of those in authority at Coca-Cola." Who's that? Who are all those people in authority at Coca-Cola? Was their name? This will be a very good move by them. You'll see. It's just, again, he feels like he's controlling this company and their moves, maybe because they spoke to him, or there's a decent chance he's never had a word with them. Because when he doesn't give details of the people that he's actually talking to, just like his trade policies and his foreign negotiation policies, and he goes, many people are saying I'm the greatest thing that's ever. Who are those people, bro? Who's the guy at Coca-Cola you were speaking to who told you they're going to real cane sugar? One other small thing. I'm not sure if maybe it's just, when I was in Southern California, we saw this a lot. There are these things, they're called Cokes, and they come in glass bottles, and they call it Mexican Coke, and it has the real cane sugar in it. In other words, they already sell Coke with real cane sugar in it. But he's announcing they're going to put this in their original product, which I'm going to get to right now. Coke isn't really saying that. Coke, which is not confirmed to move to cane sugar, replied to a comment on Trump's post when he posted about that, saying all Coca-Cola brand products are wholesome beverages manufactured in compliance with the federal law. So they kind of don't want to be the ones talking about how they're changing things and the high fructose corn syrup isn't going to be here anymore, because again, those are partners and those are huge companies that have partnered with them to provide them with this high fructose corn syrup that's going to go into their Coke, which I don't know if it still does or whatever levels it is, but there was a lot of talk about how they don't want people to think that that's going to be a health problem for them, because again, that's money being lost. More from this article about Coke's response. Coca-Cola's response was posted under a Fox News report of Trump's announcement on X, which said Trump celebrates a new win. This is the whole point. A new win for the Maha movement as Coke announces it's switching from artificial flavoring to real cane sugar, earning the president's praise as the popular drink gets a classic makeover. This is so Fox News. So Fox News wanted to post that part to promote Donald Trump some more. And in response to that, because Coke saw it, they said, well, let's go ahead and point out what the details of this is. So their post under that, under the Fox News post said, the name sounds complex. This is them defending now. But high fructose corn syrup, which we use to sweeten some of our beverages, is actually just a sweetener made from corn. It's safe. It has about the same number of calories per serving as table sugar and is metabolized in a similar way by your body. The American Medical Association has confirmed that high fructose corn syrup is no more likely to contribute to obesity than table sugar or other full-calorie sweeteners. Please be assured that Coca-Cola brand soft drinks do not contain any harmful substances. All Coca-Cola brand products are wholesome beverages manufactured in compliance with federal law, which I pointed out before, and over 200 countries across the world. That's their approach, and that's what they want to make sure they defend high fructose corn syrup, because that's one of the industries that's making money hugely on this whole thing. Last little piece from this article. But still, Coca-Cola has not issued a formal confirmation of a planned switch to cane sugar in its U.S. products and has not released a timetable for any such change. And the company indicated new product announcements are forthcoming, but did not specifically mention reformulating its flagship Coca-Cola beverage. Again, this whole thing started with Andrew Clyde talking about how Donald Trump is the smartest guy ever. He has the art of the deal. I trust him no matter what on these tariffs. Donald Trump lies about everything. Donald Trump's tariffs are actually a disaster. The money that you hear them talking about coming in is coming out of your pocket. So when you notice the higher prices of things on normal things that you buy, and then they say, we just got $100 billion extra in this quarter based off of all the money that's flowing in. The money that's flowing in is flowing from your pockets and into these rich guys' bank accounts. That's who's winning on this tariff policy. So when they tell you that the coffers of the United States are being filled up, but then those coffers aren't going to any of the programs that benefit your life that you also pay taxes into, it's not going to you. It's going to them from your pockets. Just pay attention to what it is that they're doing. And the way they do it to make sure you don't pay attention to it is to call this guy the smartest person that's ever lived and the art of the deal book writer, which he didn't effing do. Everything is fake. Hope you guys are enjoying it. If you are, go ahead, like the stream. Go ahead, share it. Actually, make sure you hit the notifications so you know when we're going to do this. Or you could just remember that it's at noon every day, and then afterwards you come back and check out the cleaned up, boxed and packaged product of each of these stories in case you missed a part of it. Or you want to share it with your friends and say, look at this. Jayar Jackson broke this whole thing down, and now you have nothing else to say about it. Maybe not do that. I know. Really fast, we got more things happening. We're halfway through the hour already. Damn it. What's going on? You guys talk way too much. You don't like my music. Just said, whenever you hear the word efficiency, check your wallet, because you're being robbed. 100%. The efficiency is taking more things from you so that they can be less efficient. When have you seen this party be efficient with anything? I gotta be honest, really, any party, but the money never fully comes back to the folks who pay for all of this. Just always remember, it's like a straightforward thing. You're giving out money, you should get something back. Every time they say you're paying taxes and you shouldn't get anything for it, they're taking it. Luck Dragon points out RC Cola. I haven't seen RC Cola in forever. Do they still exist? And are they pure cane sugar or are they un-American? How many things have high fructose corn syrup in them? Anyways, let's move on, you guys, to this next topic. So this whole push on mass immigration, the mass deportations that this administration is pushing forward to continues to have to hit all of these hurdles and all of these questions being asked of them, especially since they're sweeping up American citizens as well. And they kind of just don't give a damn. Tommy Tuberville is one of the Trump ass kissers who's carrying water for him, who has this very explicit and very telling story about the way he feels about people who get swept up and what they should do to avoid that.
So, Senator, do you care if U.S. citizens accidentally get detained in ICE raids?
If U.S. citizens?
Yeah, it's been happening a lot. It's been happening a lot with veterans in particular. Yeah.
Well, first of all, don't put yourself in a situation where that happens. Okay. And I'm sure with all the illegals we have in this country, you're going to probably have some mistakes happen. That's going to happen. But again, as long as we take care of it the right way, understand they are citizens, let them go. But again, if you're going to be hanging around people that are not citizens of this country, some things like that are going to probably happen.
Is there anything people can do to take care of themselves? Like, how can they do to prevent that?
Don't hang around illegals.
Okay.
Bottom line, because President Trump has said we're going to go after you. And at the end of the day, if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, something bad could happen.
Got it.
Don't hang around illegals. Don't hang around illegals. You're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Don't hang around those people that we've just deemed all criminals. In fact, if you're not here in under an undocumented status, or if you're not doing anything, make sure you don't hang around those illegals. I want you guys to just pay attention to the way this sounds very much like the way we heard about past regimes in other countries and the way they treated certain people in those countries and the folks who might be around them, and how that also suddenly makes you a criminal too. Are we paying attention yet to the way these guys talk? Tommy Tuberville sounds like an effing Nazi. And if he doesn't want to be called a Nazi, I feel like Tommy Tuberville shouldn't talk like a Nazi. Here's one of the guys that apparently was hanging out with the wrong people at the wrong time, except he's a U.S. Army veteran, served the country, and he's only 25 years old. And the guy still ended up with this as his story. This is who Tommy Tuberville just gave a big middle finger to.
George Redis is a U.S. and an Army veteran who works as a security guard at a cannabis farm in California. Redis says he was arrested by U.S. officials last week during an immigration raid at that farm, shown here.
It took two officers to nail on my back and then one on my neck to arrest me, even though my hands were already behind my back and I was covered in OC spray. They had no coordination going on whatsoever. They were just kind of cuffing people and just sending them away. Without any information at all. I told them everything. I was a citizen, I worked there, and they didn't care. They still never told me my charges. And then they sent me away. They sent me to a place in downtown LA without even telling me what I was arrested for.
After the raid, Redis said he was held at the detention facility for 3 days without explanation. While in jail, he said he missed his daughter's 3rd birthday. Reeling from the stress of his arrest and being separated from his family, Redis said he was put on suicide watch.
So you were getting emotional and they just put you there?
Yeah, I felt like it was the best for myself.
Army veteran George Redis was swept up because he was hanging around those illegals at work. He was working as security for this cannabis farm that, of course, Donald Trump and Fox News, and specifically Jesse Waters, said an illegal cannabis farm in California where the shit is legal. They swept up all these illegals there. Is he one of them? Did anybody thank him for his service? Does he respect the military, or did he call them a bunch of suckers and losers? Because when these stories pop up, you know who doesn't say anything? Anybody in this administration. They say nothing. In fact, they celebrate it more. Or people like Tommy Tuberville say, maybe you shouldn't have hung out with those damn illegals, been doing your job, Army veteran. That's what Tommy Tuberville has to say to this guy, who had more details about what happened to him. Because after he was then taken in, they didn't have many answers for him. They just shoved him in this detention center in downtown LA and moved on. Here's more details. On Sunday, an officer had him sign a paper and walked him out of the detention center. He said he was told he faced no charges. So just out of nowhere, after being in that detention center for 3 days, he said he just faces no charges, no explanation, no, hey, yo, my bad. Hey, listen, heads are gonna roll. Why would they say that? They're a lawless organization. A little bit more. He said, they gave me nothing I could wrap my head around, explaining that he was met with silence on his way out when he asked about being locked up for 3 days with no reason and no charges. Trisha McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, confirmed his arrest, but didn't say on what charges. Maybe it's those new charges that come from someone like Tommy Tuberville, who said, yo, it's illegal to be around those illegals. Maybe at the grocery store, or maybe when you're at home, maybe in traffic, maybe walking down the street, maybe buying something from someone. Who knows? It doesn't matter. You can't hang around what you may deem that this ICE agency deems to believe to be illegals. I guarantee you they assumed that George Redis was an illegal, but instead he served the country. Where's the congratulations? Where's the thank you for your service? Where's the respect? When are these conservatives that like to always talk about how you said support the troops, when are you going to start doing it? They don't give a damn. They hate people like this. Matter of fact, if you serve the country and you're brown, it makes you even worse. It's kind of the history of the country. Here's one of these Nazis that likes to talk about this stuff. And this goes back to the propaganda. You know the story about George Redis there. You know the story about how Tommy Tuberville is talking about don't hang around those illegals because bad things may happen to you. You just have to understand to avoid them because the Gestapo is coming. And they're being led by this guy.
Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller. Is there an internment camp in the Everglades, Miller?
There is an ICE facility that provides a far superior level of housing and accommodation than is available to millions of Americans who are living in Section 8 housing and other low-income areas of our own blighted cities, like Baltimore, like Detroit, like Chicago. How many Americans are living in abominable conditions compared to the pristine conditions of our ICE facilities and our Border Patrol facilities? Look, at every turn, illegal aliens have always been treated better than Americans. The difference is, in this administration, they're getting a ticket out of America so that we can take care of our own people.
Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor.
So Stephen Miller decided to go on this whole tirade, full of lies again, like usual, because he's a piece of shit. So he said, these folks, it's better than living in the Section 8 housing. Again, talking about this alligator Alcatraz, which has fallen apart already, which Democratic officials and representatives has visited already and saw them stashed in these cages, literal cages, 32 men to a cage with one faucet / toilet / toothbrushing site. Because, you know, that's so much better than those Section 8 housings in those big cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, and Baltimore that he likes to talk about. By the way, last I checked, Los Angeles, Baltimore, and Chicago are in the United States of America. Why are you talking so much trash about the United States of America? Why do you hate this country, Stephen Miller? I think you should leave since you don't like it here. Or maybe we have those types of conditions in those cities in Section 8 housing because there's a vast income inequality situation that we've got here, where we continue, as we're doing right now, with that bullshit bill that you guys just had passed and sending more money up to rich people. I think that makes these situations worse. But, you know, who cares? Stephen Miller has to talk about brown people and how horrible they are. But these are pristine conditions with one toilet / faucet for 32 people in a cage, according to Stephen Miller. You know why Stephen Miller said that? Because Stephen Miller is a Nazi. Here's more.
So that we can take care of our own people. Do you have any idea how many resources will be opened up for Americans when the illegals are gone? No more waiting in line at an emergency room? No more massive traffic in Los Angeles? Your health insurance premiums go down? Your public school classroom size will shrink dramatically. They have more time to educate every student. You won't have to compete for public benefits. If you're down on your luck, you're having a hard time, and you do need to get support from the government, you're not going to be in line behind millions of illegal aliens from the third world. This is going to be such a gift to the quality of life of everyday Americans, Jesse. It's hard to even express the wonders that await for working people.
Well, I mean, you had me at no traffic in LA. If you guys can get that message broadcast loud and clear over there, I mean, I think you'll have a lot of those people in LA saying adios themselves. So we
think about how much better your life would be. Now, by the way, before you think about that stuff that he was just saying, think about what they told you they're going to be doing. Deporting all the illegal, violent rapists, murderers, drug dealers, and traffickers. Remember that? But now it has something to do with getting rid of children that are in your schools, getting rid of folks to alleviate your traffic problems in LA. Your life will be so much better. And if you find yourself down on your luck, as Stephen Miller said, you're going to go to those programs. Oh, I'm sorry, they're cutting all those programs that in case you're an American who's down on his luck and you might have to go take in some of the money that you gave for years for those benefits that they call over the top and sucking off of the teat of America. All those things that they've always said about those programs that they're getting rid of now. In case you're down on your luck, you might still be able to go back and be given a middle finger and called lazy, like they're doing right now. None of it makes any sense if you actually continue to listen to what these guys say. You won't have to compete for any of those public benefits anymore. You mean the tens, I think it's billions of dollars that undocumented migrants in this country pay in taxes and don't get anything back for because they don't get benefits? Because when they get here, they do have to work in order to survive, literally. So yeah, many times folks do live in Section 8 housing or in smaller places and things like that, because if they're out on the streets, which many folks are, you spit on them and kick them too. I just want to point out how wrong Stephen Miller is on all this. One more from him, because I'm not sure if you guys know this yet. Stephen Miller's a Nazi.
But look, at the end of the day, what this really comes down to is this, Jesse. Who lives in your country determines what your country is, right? Haiti doesn't work as a country. It just doesn't. People have tried forever. People have spent billions of dollars trying to make Haiti work as a project. Haiti doesn't work. If you take Haiti and you move it to America, it's not going to work here. Somalia doesn't work as a country, has never worked as a country. You take Somalia out of Somalia, you put it here, it's not going to work any better. It's not about how you feel about an individual immigrant. It's about the policy at a systemic scale. If you move the third world to the first world, eventually we become the third world. And that's not good for us. It's not good for anybody who wants to live here in the future.
All right, Stephen Miller.
All right. Just Stephen Miller, I guess, being a complete racist asshole. So again, you can't import the third world into the first world and expect it not to be the third world. I feel like there's this guy who he works with who denied saying he's called other countries shithole countries, which of course he has. I mean, the guy just went on Fox News and explained that very clearly. Oh, and I think he's forgetting that those countries that they like to talk about being third world countries, all of these colonizers, all these leeches went in years and centuries and decades ago, which continues to this day, and extracted all the resources from them, enslaved the people of that, completely destabilized the country, destroyed its opportunities for itself. And then after you have a coup that destroys your ability to continue to enslave the folks that live there, you take off and say, can you believe this trash country that we just trashed is trash? It must be the people. Or maybe it's the colonizers who came in and were too lazy to work for themselves, or also too lazy to find ways to make money in their own countries. These immigrants ran up in Haiti, fucked everything up, And then after they did that, they call the people that they did this to garbage human beings and third world humans that aren't allowed to come here and better our country because they might bring their destruction with them, the destruction that we placed on their heads. Stephen Miller is a garbage human being. And he's one of the folks who ran up in countries like Haiti and did that stuff. It was the French that did it. And I'm sure Stephen Miller studied it and was like, this is a great policy. I mean, for all of us lazy assholes, it's very easy for us to act like we're just watching this country destroy itself, when in fact, we were violent, cruel, dictatorial type of people who came in and murdered folks and used them for our benefit. And now they're garbage countries. I want you to get a full scope of understanding how this works. And remember all those criminals that he's talking about? You know, because they're all criminals and things are going to get so much better. How about some actual stats?
President Trump has repeatedly claimed his administration crackdown would focus on deporting those who he describes as, quote, the worst of the worst. But government data shows the majority of people detained by ICE in recent months have never been convicted of a crime.
About 40% of the people detained by ICE since President Trump took office do have criminal convictions. Many of these crimes are nonviolent offenses, including immigration-related crimes like illegal re-entry into the country. About 8% of those who have convictions for serious violent offenses like murder, sexual assault, and rape. But about 30% only have pending criminal charges. Their cases have not been adjudicated fully, and the other 30% or so only face civil immigration charges, meaning that they are non-criminal migrants who are in the country illegally but face no criminal accusations. And that number has increased significantly in recent weeks because of what is known as a collateral arrest. The administration is allowing ICE agents to not only arrest the people they are targeting, mostly criminals, but also any other undocumented person who they encounter in those operations who are not the targets, again, of that operation.
All you have to do is pay attention. Those are numbers from ICE. The very small number of people that they're actually going after that are these violent criminals that they claimed. That's why Stephen Miller is now talking about, don't you want your schools cleared and your roads cleared? And maybe no one actually adding to the economy. There's been also folks that analyze how this is going to destroy so many economies because of the input and the help, by the way, that these folks who we don't give any of these full rights to continue to contribute to our country. But, you know, when you're ignorant and you're bigoted, you're ignorant and you don't understand those things. What the number one thing in all these white supremacist mindsets is white supremacy. So none of it actually works. So as he and his buddy continue to destroy the country and say that other countries are destroyed, some of those factors that destroy countries are dictatorial leaders, people who manipulate the economies and also strip their citizens of their rights. That's how you become a third world country. Because, you know, after those colonizers leave, or I'm sorry, are forced out through rebellion, there's always political unrest and a battle for power. And that also disrupts these countries. But, you know, Stephen Miller doesn't know any of that stuff. Of course he does. I got 10 minutes. I have a whole other story to get to, but I only have 10 minutes. You know what? Because Van Jones is so stupid, I'm going to do at least part of it. We'll see if I can squeeze this in 10, but really fast. Am I cussing too much today, you guys? Just realized I'm tired of censoring myself. We'll see if this is a problem later. You guys let me know. Anyways, let's move on to the next. And for anybody who just showed up now, again, don't forget, you guys, hit like buttons. Let everybody know what we're doing here. I feel like we're starting to roll downhill, and I like it. Let's jump in this. Van Jones said this about Donald Trump and his bizarre behavior.
This is a president that's in trouble. He has lied to his base. He told them that he was going to do something he's afraid to do. Why is Trump afraid to release these documents? That is the question. I have been defending Trump, actually saying it's inconceivable that anything that's in these documents is going to hurt Trump because Biden would have released them. But he's been acting
Do you still think that's true?
Well, now he's acting so weird. Trump is acting so bizarre.
So has that changed your view?
Dan, you actually think Merrick Garland, who moved with the speed
Yes.
of a wounded sloth,
Yes.
and was definitely
That's what I thought. Maybe I'm
would have released this?
Here's what I'm going to say.
Listen,
Here's
the
what I'm
guy
gonna
who
say.
took forever and a
Here's
day
a
to
week
bring
and
a
half.
case
Here's
against
what I'm
Trump.
going to say. Those of us who were making that claim have been undermined this week by Donald Trump acting so bizarrely. Why is he on Truth Social crying, saying, I don't even want you to be my friend anymore because you're being... This is unbecoming. This is strange. And it's starting to make people who don't want to believe the worst to believe the worst. And we should be talking about that, not about
Okay,
P.
can I make one?
This is why continuing to carry the water or trying to play the middle ground is a problem. Van Jones said, I was defending Donald Trump about there's no way that the Epstein files have anything to do with him because Biden would have released them at the time. So as you carry that message and enough people are still foolish enough to listen to you, what you do is you've given the guy who's now seen widely as a cover-up artist for this whole thing for reasons that we can only speculate about, which a lot of times include the worst reasons. After you carry the water for them for long enough, because you have to give him a benefit of the doubt so you don't look like you're crazy or nothing, then you allow him to continue to cover this whole thing up, to continue to not give a damn about the victims that they previously claimed to give a damn about. It's allowing folks to implement these types of policies and this type of energy and within the country to make people be okay with it. Normalizing this kind of bad behavior will allow you to then say, now in the middle of July, now Donald Trump is acting bizarrely. This fool has been acting bizarrely since I'm going to limit myself a little bit, since he came down the escalator. That's bizarre behavior. Is it also bizarre behavior that he said he's going to release them on day one and they didn't? Is it bizarre behavior that he said he's going to end the war between Ukraine and Russia on day one? Is it bizarre behavior that he said tariffs are going to pay for themselves and they haven't? Is all that bizarre behavior yet, Van? Is any of that bizarre behavior? Because for some reason, he just now started acting bizarrely. And now he makes me look like a fool because I've been defending him. Bro, it was that train left years ago. Here he is telling his supporters, I don't give a damn about you either. Is this bizarre behavior?
This morning, you mentioned past supporters when you were talking about the Epstein issue. Does that mean that you're effectively disowning any supporters who are now...
I lost a lot of faith in certain people, yeah. I lost because they got duped by the Democrats.
He's distancing himself from his supporters because they got duped. Why is Donald Trump defending pedophiles? Why is Donald Trump defending Jeffrey Epstein? Why? And that's what his people are asking. And now he's disowning them. Now he's distancing himself from those same folks. I'm just wondering if Van Jones understands that this is more bizarre behavior, or if he's going to go back to next week and going, well, I mean, I think if I defend him a little bit further, we can make some sense of this whole thing. Maybe if I say, yo, he's talking about how he wants to distance himself from his MAGA base off of this one issue when there was no other time he would distance himself from his MAGA base. Also, there's nothing else that his MAGA base would get this upset about, because every time that he was exposed as a fraud and a liar and a cheat and a stealer, they still were a part of it, because the bigotry was still there. Now that they realize that these folks on this list weren't just people that they're supposed to hate, they're probably a little bit upset about it. And they can't then say, I support a guy who's covering up Epstein files, which includes names of people who assaulted and trafficked young girls. I guess that's just a level that they can't go too far beyond. That's disowning supporters. This is him talking about the evidence that might be released. I want you guys to understand how the evolution of this goes. The whole point of playing this is listen to now how he's going on to saying there might be some evidence, but he only wants the credible evidence to be released, because they might start to cherry picking and saying this is all of it.
Where do you think, what are the things important that you would like to see the FBI get to the bottom of?
I think they could look at all of it. It's all the same scam. They could look at this Jeffrey Epstein hoax also, because that's the same stuff. That's all put out by Democrats.
Yeah.
And, some of the naive Republicans fall right into line like they always do. They just don't have the They don't have the sustainability. They don't have there's something. They don't have that stick to it like glue. The Democrats, you know, they have bad policy. They have bad candidates. They have bad everything. But they stick together. The Republicans don't do that. But they ought to look into the Jeffrey Epstein hoax too, because that's another hoax that's frankly put out by the pushing the Republicans and put out by the Democrats.
No, they definitely set the Republicans up. One big prosecutor look at it all. Would that make you feel good, you think?
Well, I think it's in the case of Epstein, they've already looked at it and they are looking at it. And I think all they have to do is put out anything credible. But, you know, that was run by the Biden administration for 4 years. I can imagine what they put into files.
Yeah, we can only imagine what they put into files after 4 years. After he was, died mysteriously in prison and was imprisoned and convicted during Donald Trump's term. I think it should be said just as much as they say that it's all under Biden. All this happened under Donald Trump. Then Joe Biden came in and whatever was there, I mean, if we're talking about destruction of evidence, why wouldn't it have happened before Joe Biden came in? And that Van Jones said Joe Biden would have released all that because that's Joe Biden. What if it wasn't there, Van? What if all these talks that they've been having about how the evidence was destroyed when the evidence was brought in during Trump's term, how that was all destroyed and then Joe Biden must have done it? Or Joe Biden didn't want to release it either because there's names on that list that he doesn't want to reveal either. It just this weird thing. All these rich elite people, no matter their political affiliation, were probably involved in this stuff. I think that's pretty obvious. So we can just act like it's a president versus another president, but there's all kinds of people that could be involved in this that force those presidents to not say or do anything about this. So you can blame Biden all you want. It could be true. You can also blame Donald Trump because it's true right in front of us right now. Thomas Massey's trying to get something out of this. He's been a foe of the president lately, but I'm sure at one point he's going to be dropped back to his knees when he needs to win back this primary that Trump keeps threatening him with. But he did say this. I mean, a little bit of something. Thomas Massey pointed out, please thank these folks for sponsoring my bipartisan legislation to release the complete Epstein files. By the way, both the House and the Senate voted against releasing those files. Ro Khanna, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Burchett, Tim Burchett, Eli Crane, Boebert, Congressman JVD, I don't know who that is, Eric Burleson, Mills Press, Tom Barrett, and Rashida Tlaib, right? So he's got all these folks. They've got these people that are going to come together, introduce legislation to let it all go. I pointed out and highlighted Tim Burchett specifically because he also went on CNN to talk about how he's this champion of the victims, and he has to answer to God about everything that's going on. I just want to point out how he continues to speak well. Listen to Tim Burchett talk about how he wants the truth to come out.
Congressman, special counsel can also investigate a matter without prosecuting a matter and trying to uncover what details might actually be there. Why do you specifically want there to be an investigation? Do you believe that the DOJ is withholding information right now about the truth of Epstein?
I believe that a lot of the evidence has probably been destroyed. I mean, that's what we do in Washington, man. We delay. That's a great question. That's what I think an investigation would solve. I mean, you honestly think Lee Harvey Oswald shot President Kennedy? There was something else going on there, and it's been proven. We even had expert testimony on Capitol Hill and Representative Luna's committee that I serve on. The doctor in the ER specifically said wounds were coming from two different directions, and he had the maps and he showed the diagrams of everything, and yet no one wanted to cover it because why? Washington, that is Washington. You cover until you get out of office, and then somebody else doesn't know enough information and it continues to get covered up. I don't think we'll ever know the answer to Epstein, ma'am, but I don't think we should ever stop asking what the heck went on.
Well, you're one of only a hand.
He doesn't think we'll ever find out, but we should keep asking. I'm not sure if he is expecting an answer, but he just wants to keep asking. Maybe these investigations will turn something up. I know we're at the top of the hour. If you guys are taking off for damage report, we'll see you soon, but I got to finish this story. So anybody that hangs on, I appreciate you sticking with me. You can run back to John in a minute. And of course, crash that party with a bunch of watch list emojis and a bunch of celebration things because, it's the watch party. Anyways, moving on for more with Tim Burchett, as he's talking about, he wants the evidence to come out. He doesn't trust the way that this administration is moving. As a matter of fact, he only answers to God when it comes to these types of things. I just want to make sure you guys see this as well.
And, Jesus said, how you treat the least amongst us is how you treat me. And those kids are the least amongst us, ma'am. And ultimately, I don't stand before the president or the voters. I'm going to stand before my creator. And I want to do that with a clear conscience. And that's ultimately what drives me, because politically, is this the route I need to take in Washington and, and everybody jumping down my throat? No. But my mama and daddy didn't raise me that way, ma'am. They were fighters, and they always stood up for the underdog. And in this case, I think it's important we stand up for the people of America that have been abused, and to say we're through with these dirt bags. And Jesus said, how you treat the least amongst us is how you treat me. And those kids are the least amongst us, ma'am. And ultimately, I don't stand before the president or the voters. I'm going to stand before my creator. And I want to do that with a clear conscience. And that's ultimately what drives me, because politically, is this the route I need to take in Washington and, and everybody jumping down my throat? No. But my mama and daddy didn't raise me.
Sorry, I ran that guy twice. He stands before his creator. He doesn't answer to the president, not even his voters. What he stands before is his creator. And he has to represent the most vulnerable among us. Those victims, many times those underage kids. So I want you guys to remember that. Tim Burchett stands for the least powerful of us. He doesn't answer to Donald Trump. That's why he's a part of this whole thing about trying to release these files that he doesn't think are actually going to be released. So I want you guys to then pay attention to what he said about the possibility for Donald Trump to survive this. And think about how enthusiastic he is about which way this may go.
Well, President Trump, as you know, is calling the Epstein controversy BS. He's actually labeling Republicans as, these are his words, stupid and foolish, even calling his own supporters weaklings for not letting this story go. And he says he doesn't want their support anymore. What's your response to President Trump?
President Trump has his own opinions, but honestly, ma'am, he wins. Just like tonight, the cryptocurrency bill, it passed in the House because President Trump negotiated. He has a strategy in all this, and I suspect that's going to play out because, dadgummit, he wins every dadgum time. The big, beautiful bill hitting Iran the way they did with no American loss of life. It's uncanny that he ends up on top, and I suspect on this case he will do as well.
And you don't have any concern that, well, President Trump.
Tim Burchett is in a fight against Donald Trump about releasing these Epstein files because Donald Trump said the people who won are weaklings and losers and anti-American, and they're ignoring all the successes of the administration. Tim Burchett wants to stand up for the least powerful kids in our country. But when asked how he thinks this is going to play out, considering Donald Trump is rejecting all the people who are saying the things that he's saying, I don't know. Donald Trump's going to win every time. The man wins every time he does anything. So I suspect he's going to kick our asses around some more. I had to listen to that a couple times. I was like, is this the same interview? Weren't you just talking about how you're going to stand up because your parents were fighters and that you're going to speak to God because you only answer to him? Right before you answer to Donald Trump, who's hiding the evidence behind all these people who are victimizing the least powerful people in our country, those children, but you are sure he's going to win because the man wins at everything. The reason why he wins everything is because you keep giving him these wins, because you don't stand by the things that you say that you're going to do, or even these principles that you talk about. What this is trying to make himself look good before nothing happens, so that his name isn't encapsulated with this whole thing. Because we did see how many Republicans did vote to block the release of these files. Are they on the list? I mean, we can only speculate, and the speculations will continue until they finally do something about it. One last thing. We should probably ask Tim Burchett about the kinds of folks that Donald Trump released from their sentences from January 6th. Kyle Cheney, who's a senior legal affairs reporter for Politico, pointed this out. I'm not sure if this story is getting much traction, but this is what happened in the courtroom probably just this week. He tweeted this out. A California jury has convicted Kyle Colton, a pardoned January 6th defendant, of possession of child pornography. Colton had argued Trump's pardon should have reached his child porn case because it was discovered during the execution of the January 6th warrant. So they put Kyle Colton in jail for running up on the Capitol and being involved in these fights with these law enforcement officers and trying to take over the country and conduct Donald Trump's coup. So when that all failed, he got sent to jail. Donald Trump said, I'm going to release all you guys because you're my foot soldiers I need in the streets to have this fight that I'm going to have in this administration that we're in the middle of. And since he's been swept up again off of his child porn charges that he's got on his computer, he wanted to get off from that because it all came in with that same case that Donald Trump pardoned him for. Is anybody in this administration going to point out how these folks that ran up on the Capitol, Donald Trump's very great people, he called it one of the most beautiful days in America, was full of people like this guy who was now busted on child porn charges and still wants to get out proudly. His defense is that, well, you guys picked up all the child porn stuff when you guys were investigating the things that Donald Trump said it's okay that I did. In other words, Donald Trump endorses my behavior at all fronts, all the way up to the child porn, all the way up to covering up for this Epstein file situation, because Donald Trump doesn't care about child sex traffickers. He doesn't care about drug dealers. He doesn't care about criminals. What he cares about is making you think that he cares about those things while he steals your money and kicks people out of the country that he thinks are too brown or lesser than him. And he needs you to do that. Let me show you what this guy was saying in court. This is the last thing, I promise. Those court documents and evidence presented at this trial revealed that a law enforcement search of his home uncovered copious images and videos depicting graphic sexual abuse of young children. The material was saved on his computer desktop, and he had a number of bookmarks linking to known child porn sites. By the way, remember that whole thing happened with January 6th? It was January of 2021. Officials said that the material was downloaded between July of 22 and December of 2023, just in time for him to then get a chance to have Donald Trump pardon him. He's Donald Trump's guy. These are Donald Trump's people. Just want to point that out. I'm glad many of you who still hung on. That's the end of this party. Sorry, the party ended so depressingly. We'll do better tomorrow. In fact, speaking of doing better tomorrow, before you guys all leave, I do understand the sketchiness of the videos that run. We're working on it. I mean, I'm gonna get to that soon and break it all down because it annoys me. It's really tiring, but we're gonna get to understand the frustrations. Hang in there with me. We'll get it all figured out. I hope for all of next week is gonna be a clean run. Maybe even tomorrow. It's a Friday watch party tomorrow, so we'll see you guys then. Tell John I say hey. You guys can say you're the late dragons that showed up or something. I appreciate you guys, though. We'll see you tomorrow.